A dog visits the hospital every day, but no one understands why. Until the truth is revealed, and everyone is thrilled. Want to find out the reason behind these daily visits? Check it out now. Oakville General Hospital was like any other hospital in a small American town. White walls, long corridors, and the constant hum of machines mixed with whispered conversations. But on that Tuesday morning, something unusual happened. A golden retriever with golden fur and sparkling eyes came trotting through the front door, as if he knew exactly where he was going. The nurses at reception exchanged surprised glances, but their faces soon broke into smiles. The dog, with a red scarf tied around his neck, seemed to bring with him a wave of joy that spread through the lobby. Patients in wheelchairs reached out to stroke it, and even the most hurried visitors stopped for a moment to admire the animal. Among the staff watching the scene was Lisa, a dedicated nurse who had worked at the hospital for over a decade. Her eyes followed the dog as it moved down the corridor, stopping occasionally to receive a cuddle or offer a gentle lick. There was something special about that animal, something that went beyond the simple presence of a dog in a hospital environment. Lisa watched as the dog entered room 305, where Mr. Johnson, an elderly patient battling cancer, was staying. Curious, she approached the ajar door and witnessed a scene that warmed her heart. Mr. Johnson, who rarely smiled, was now laughing openly while his dog rested his head on his lap. "Who's that lovely boy?" asked Mr. Johnson, his voice stronger than Lisa had heard in weeks. Lisa entered the room, smiling. "It seems we have a special visitor today, Mr. Johnson. I don't know where he came from, but he's certainly spreading joy around here." The dog looked at Lisa, wagging his tail as if he understood every word. There was an intelligence in his eyes that intrigued her. Later, during her coffee break, Lisa couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious dog. She joined her colleague, Megan, in the hospital cafeteria. "Did you see that golden retriever this morning?" Lisa asked, absent-mindedly stirring her coffee. Megan nodded, her eyes lighting up. "Yes, he's a cutie, isn't he? He seems to have appeared out of nowhere and decided to brighten everyone's day." "Exactly," Lisa agreed, leaning forward. "But don't you think it's strange? A dog loose in a hospital? How did he get in? Whose is he?" Megan shrugged. "Maybe he's a therapy dog. I've heard that some hospitals are implementing programs like that." Lisa shook her head. "No, we don't have an official program here, and he didn't have any identification apart from that red scarf." The two nurses continued to speculate, their theories becoming more and more elaborate, but deep down, Lisa knew there was more to the story. She could sense that this dog wasn't just a casual visitor. There was a purpose to his visits, a mission she didn't yet understand. As she returned to her shift, Lisa made a silent promise to herself. She was going to find out the truth about this mysterious dog, who he was, where he came from, and, most importantly, why he chose Oakville General Hospital as his daily destination. Little did she know that this investigation would take her on a journey that would change not only her life, but that of everyone at the hospital. Buddy's heart, as she would soon discover was the dog's name, held secrets that would change Oakville forever. Room 412 at Oakville General Hospital was different from the others. While most rooms had flowers, cards and photos of loved ones, this one was stark and impersonal. The white walls looked even colder under the fluorescent light, reflecting the state of mind of its sole occupant. Robert Miller, a veteran of the Afghan War, was sitting up in his hospital bed, staring out of the window. His eyes, once full of life and determination, now seemed distant and tired. The scars on his arms told stories of past battles, but the real fight was going on inside him. Dr. Anderson entered the room, his clipboard in hand, and a forced smile on his face. "Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you feeling today?" Robert just shrugged, without looking away from the window. "The same as yesterday, Doctor, and the day before." The doctor sighed, approaching the bed. "Well, I have good news. Your recovery is progressing better than expected. If we continue at this pace, you could be discharged in a few weeks." The news, which should have been cause for joy, only seemed to increase the tension in Robert's shoulders. And then what? Back to an empty apartment? To a life without purpose? Dr. Anderson opened his mouth to reply, but was interrupted by an unexpected sound coming from the corridor. A cheerful bark echoed through the room, followed by the sound of paws hitting the linoleum floor. Before either man could react, a shiny golden retriever ran into the room, its tail wagging frantically. The dog stopped beside Robert's bed, looking up with eyes full of expectation and unconditional love. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Robert looked at the dog, his expression a mixture of surprise and confusion. Then slowly, like the sun rising after a long night, a smile began to form on his lips. "Hey, buddy," Robert said softly, reaching out to stroke the dog's head. "Where'd you come from?" Dr. Anderson watched the scene with amazement. In weeks of treatment, he had never seen Robert smile or show any emotion other than apathy or frustration. Now, faced with this unexpected visitor, the veteran seemed like a different person. "Do you know this dog, Mr. Miller?" the doctor asked, curious. Robert shook his head, still stroking the furry visitor. "No, I've never seen him before, but he reminds me of home." The dog, sensing the change in Robert's mood, rested his head on his lap, looking up adoringly. Robert continued to speak, his voice becoming softer and more emotional. "You know, Doctor, I had a dog like this when I was a child. Buddy, that was his name. He always knew when I was sad or scared. It looks like this one has the same gift, Doctor." Anderson smiled, seeing an opportunity to connect. "Maybe it's a sign, Mr. Miller, a reminder that there are still good things waiting for you out there." Robert nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the dog. "Maybe you're right, Doctor. Maybe." When Dr. Anderson left the room a few minutes later, he couldn't help but notice the palpable change in the atmosphere. Room 412, once cold and gloomy, now seemed brighter, more alive, and at the center of it all was Robert, laughing softly as the dog licked his face. The doctor made a mental note to investigate the origin of this canine visitor. Something told him that this would not be an isolated encounter, but the beginning of a healing journey that would transcend the hospital walls. The afternoon sun filtered through the windows of Oakville General Hospital, casting golden shadows across the corridors. Lisa, the curious nurse, was determined to unravel the mystery of the golden retriever that had been enchanting patients and staff for the past few weeks. After her shift, Lisa decided to pay a visit to the Oakville Veterinary Center, located just a few blocks from the hospital. The clinic, a red brick building with a weathered sign, had been known for caring for the town's animals for decades. The doorbell jingled as Lisa entered. The familiar smell of antiseptic and pet food filled her nostrils. Behind the counter, a middle-aged man with gray hair and a white coat looked up from a pile of papers. "Good afternoon," he said with a warm smile. "What can I do for you?" Lisa hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hi, Dr. Collins." She read off his name tag. "My name is Lisa. I'm a nurse at the hospital. I'm here for a slightly unusual reason." Dr. Collins tilted his head, puzzled. "Well, Lisa, unusual is my specialty. What's going on?" Lisa explained about the mysterious golden retriever who had become a regular presence in the hospital, describing his appearance and the effect he had on the patients. As she spoke, Dr. Collins' eyes widened in recognition. "Ah," he said, a smile spreading across his face. "You must be talking about Buddy." "Buddy?" Lisa repeated, feeling that she was finally getting somewhere. "Doctor." Collins nodded, stepping out from behind the counter. "Yes, Buddy belongs to one of my oldest patients, a veteran called Robert Miller. Robert's been in the hospital for a few weeks, right?" Lisa agreed, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fall into place. "Yes, in room 412. But how?" "Buddy and Robert are inseparable," the vet explained, guiding Lisa to a wall covered in pictures of animals. He pointed to a picture of Buddy next to a younger man in military uniform. Robert adopted Buddy when he came back from Afghanistan. The dog helped him cope with PTSD and became his best friend. Lisa looked at the photo, feeling a surge of emotion. "So Buddy has been going to the hospital every day to see Robert?" "Exactly," Dr. Collins confirmed. "When Robert was admitted, Buddy was devastated. He would escape from the house of the neighbor who was taking care of him and always ended up in the hospital. Eventually, I realized that it was better for everyone if I took him for regular visits." The nurse was silent for a moment, absorbing the information. "That explains why Robert seems so different when Buddy is around," she murmured. Dr. Collins smiled gently. "Animals have a healing power that we often underestimate. Buddy isn't just visiting Robert, He's reminding him that there's a life and love waiting for him outside those hospital walls. As Lisa left the veterinary clinic, her mind was spinning with possibilities. Not only had she solved the mystery of the visiting dog, but she had also discovered a story of love and loyalty that transcended the barriers between humans and animals. Determined, Lisa knew she had to do something more. Buddy shouldn't just be an occasional visitor. He could be the key to Robert's complete recovery, and perhaps for many other patients. With a new purpose in her heart, Lisa walked back to the hospital, already planning how she could use this discovery to bring more light and hope to the corridors of Oakville General Hospital. Oakville General Hospital buzzed with its usual activity that Wednesday morning. Nurses hurriedly pushed medicine carts, doctors consulted charts, and the aroma of fresh coffee hung in the air. In the midst of this organized chaos, Lisa walked with determination, her mind full of ideas after the revelation about Buddy and Robert. She knocked softly on the office door of Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the hospital director. After a brief, "Come in," Lisa found herself in front of the woman who ran the hospital with a mixture of compassion and efficiency. "Lisa, what a pleasant surprise," Dr. Rodriguez said, gesturing for her to sit down. "What brings you here so early?" Lisa took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Dr. Rodriguez, I have a proposal that could change the lives of our patients." Over the next few minutes, Lisa shared her discovery about Buddy and Robert, detailing the positive impact the dog had not only on his owner, but on the entire hospital. She proposed creating a pilot animal-assisted therapy program, starting with Buddy, but potentially expanding to include other trained animals. Dr. Rodriguez listened intently, her eyes shining with growing interest. When Lisa finished, there was a moment of contemplative silence. "It's a fascinating idea, Lisa," the director finally said, "but it also presents challenges. Hygiene, allergies, logistics, there's a lot to consider." Lisa nodded, already prepared for these objections. "I've done my research, Dr. Rodriguez. There are established protocols for programs like this in other hospitals. We can adapt these guidelines to our reality." The director leaned back in her chair, a small smile forming on her lips. "You've really thought of everything, haven't you?" "Well, I can't deny the positive impact we've seen with Buddy's unofficial visits. Let's do it." Lisa's heart leapt. "Really, thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. You won't regret it." "I hope not," the principal replied with a warm smile. "Start small. Use Buddy as our pilot and document everything. If the results are positive, we can expand the program." Lisa left the office feeling light as a feather. She couldn't wait to start implementing the program, imagining the smiles it would bring to patients. Faces. Her first stop was room 412. She found Robert sitting on his bed, absent-mindedly leafing through a magazine. When he saw her enter, he looked up, a shadow of hope in his eyes. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," Lisa greeted cheerfully. "I have great news for you and Buddy." As she explained the new program, Robert's face gradually brightened. It was as if years of pain and isolation were being washed away, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. "Are you telling me that Buddy can come and see me every day, and help other patients too?" Robert asked, his voice trembling slightly with emotion. Lisa nodded, smiling. "Exactly. In fact, we hope you can help us too. Your experience with Buddy will be invaluable to the program." For the first time since his hospitalization, Robert straightened up, his shoulders heaving with a new sense of determination. "Count me in," he said firmly. "If I can help others feel what Buddy did for me, I'm in." When Lisa left Robert's room, she knew she was witnessing the start of something extraordinary. The animal-assisted therapy program wouldn't just be about dogs visiting patients. It would be about rebuilding connections, finding purpose and, above all, healing hearts. With Buddy as her furry ambassador and Robert as her human advocate, Lisa couldn't wait to see how this initiative would transform Oakville General Hospital. The future, for the first time in a long time, looked bright and full of possibilities. Fall had arrived in Oakville, painting the trees in shades of red and gold. At the General Hospital, an equally colorful transformation was taking place. The animal-assisted therapy pilot program, led by Lisa, was in full swing, and its effects were visible in every corridor and room. That Thursday morning, Buddy trotted happily alongside Robert, who was now moving more confidently in his wheelchair. They stopped at room 203, where a little girl of about 10, with a colorful scarf covering her bald head, was eagerly waiting for them. "Hello, Lily," Robert greeted with a warm smile. "Someone here is excited to see you." Lily's eyes lit up when she saw Buddy, who immediately approached her bed, putting his head in her lap. The girl laughed, a sound that echoed through the room and made her mother's eyes, sitting in the chair next to her, fill with tears. "Mr. Robert," Lily said, stroking Buddy's soft ears, "can you tell me one more story about when Buddy was a puppy?" Robert smiled, settling back in his chair. "Of course I can, darling. Did you know that Buddy once decided that my shoes were the perfect place to hide his cookies?" As Robert recounted the story, filling the room with laughter and joy, Lisa watched from the doorway, her heart overflowing with emotion. She saw how Lily, who only a few weeks ago barely spoke or smiled, now radiated happiness. And Robert, once closed off and distant, now opened up, sharing parts of himself that had long been hidden. Later that day, Lisa attended a meeting with Dr. Rodriguez and the medical team to discuss the progress of the program. "The preliminary results are impressive," Dr. Patel, the chief oncologist, commented, leafing through a report. "We're seeing significant improvements in patients' emotional well-being, and in some cases, even in their physical indicators." Dr. Rodriguez nodded, a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. "Lisa, you've exceeded all our expectations. This program is transforming our hospital." Lisa blushed at the compliment, but quickly redirected the credit. "It's all thanks to Buddy and Robert. They are the soul of this program." The meeting continued, with the team discussing ways to expand the program, possibly including other animals and volunteers. Lisa listened attentively, her mind already spinning with new ideas and possibilities. As Lisa left the conference room, she was approached by a younger nurse, Ashley, who looked nervous but determined. "Lisa, I wanted to thank you," Ashley said, her voice shaking slightly. "My grandmother is in room 318, fighting Alzheimer's. Ever since Buddy started visiting her, she's had moments of lucidity that we haven't seen for months. It's as if, like he's bringing back parts of her that we thought we'd lost." Lisa hugged her colleague, feeling the weight of her words. "Oh, Ashley, I'm so happy to hear that. That's why we do what we do." As she walked back to her station, Lisa reflected on how a simple act of kindness, bringing a dog to visit its owner in hospital, had turned into something much bigger. She had seen patients smile for the first time in weeks, families reconnect through the love shared by an animal, and hospital staff rediscover the joy in their work. Oakville General Hospital was changing, not just in policies and programs, but in spirit. And at the center of it all was a golden retriever with a heart of gold, reminding everyone that the power of healing often comes in the most unexpected forms. Winter came to Oakville, covering the town in a white blanket of snow. At the General Hospital, the animal-assisted therapy program continued to flourish, bringing warmth and comfort to patients even on the coldest days. Robert, now a pillar of the program, was sitting in a comfortable chair in the hospital's recreation room, Buddy faithfully by his side. A group of patients surrounded him, eager for another of his stories. Among them was a young soldier, recently admitted after an accident during training. "So, guys," Robert began, his voice charged with emotion. "Today, I want to tell you about the day Buddy saved me. Not just physically, but, well, you'll understand." The young soldier's eyes fixed on Robert, a mixture of curiosity and understanding in his gaze. Robert took a deep breath and began his narrative. "It was about a year after I came back from Afghanistan. Things weren't easy. The nightmares, the flashbacks, sometimes it felt like the war had never ended. Buddy, sensing his owner's tension, rested his head on his lap. Robert smiled gratefully, stroking the dog's soft ears. That night, I was in a very dark place. I thought maybe the world would be better off without me." Robert paused, his voice breaking. The young soldier leaned forward, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. But then, Buddy, he just knew. He kept barking, tugging at my sleeve. When I finally looked at him, I saw so much love, so much concern in those eyes. It was as if he was saying, "Hey, Buddy, you're not alone. I'm here with you." Robert wiped away a furtive tear. At that moment, I realized that I couldn't give up. I couldn't abandon this friend who never abandoned me. Buddy gave me a reason to go on, to seek help. The silence in the room was palpable, broken only by the occasional sniffle of emotion. The young soldier, his voice trembling, asked, How did you move on after that?" Robert looked directly at the young man, recognizing the pain in his eyes. "One day at a time, son. I sought therapy, reconnected with old friends, and of course, I had Buddy by my side every step of the way. It wasn't easy, but every day got a little better." Lisa, who was watching the scene from the doorway, felt her heart squeeze. She saw how Robert's words touched every person in the room, especially the young soldier. It was more than therapy. It was a bridge between wounded souls, a promise that healing was possible. After the session, as the patients dispersed, Lisa approached Robert. "That was amazing," she said softly. "You're making a real difference here." Robert smiled, a glint of purpose in his eyes. "It's funny, isn't it? I came to this hospital thinking my life was over. Now, thanks to Buddy and this program, I feel like I'm just beginning a new journey." As they walked down the corridor together, Buddy trotting happily alongside, Lisa reflected on how a simple idea had turned into something so profound and impactful. Oakville General Hospital was no longer just a place for medical treatment. It had become a sanctuary for emotional and spiritual healing. And at the center of it all was Buddy, a dog with the incredible gift of bringing people together, healing hearts and reminding everyone of the resilience of the human spirit. Winter in Oakville was in full swing, and the General Hospital felt like a cozy refuge from the biting cold outside. The animal-assisted therapy program had become an integral part of the hospital routine, bringing comfort and joy to patients and staff alike. One particularly frosty morning, Lisa arrived at the hospital to find an unexpected scene. A group of hospital administrators, led by a man in a suit she didn't recognize, were gathered in the main lobby, talking in serious tones. Dr. Rodriguez spotted Lisa and beckoned her over. "Lisa, come here, please. This is Mr. Hawkins, from the hospital's board of directors." Mr. Hawkins, a middle-aged man with piercing eyes, greeted Lisa with a brief nod. "Miss Carter, I've heard a lot about your program. Impressive, really. But I'm afraid we're going to have to discuss some, concerns." Lisa's heart sank. "Concerns. The program has been an unqualified success. The patients are responding wonderfully." Yes, Mr. Hawkins interrupted. "But there are liability issues to consider, and costs. The board is concerned about the potential risks and the long-term financial impact." Dr. Rodriguez intervened, her voice firm. "Mr. Hawkins, I understand your concerns, but I assure you that we have taken all the necessary precautions. The positive impact of this program is undeniable." As the discussion continued, Robert arrived with Buddy. The golden retriever, sensing the tension in the air, remained exceptionally quiet next to his owner. "What's going on?" Robert asked Lisa softly. Before she could answer, Mr. Hawkins turned to Robert. "Ah, you must be the veteran, Mr. Miller, right? Tell me, do you really think that bringing animals into a hospital environment is appropriate?" Robert straightened his shoulders, his eyes shining with a determination Lisa rarely saw. "Mr. Hawkins, with all due respect, this program saved my life, and not just mine. Have you ever seen the face of a child with cancer light up when Buddy enters the room? Or an Alzheimer's patient remember moments of his life when he strokes a dog?" Mr. Hawkins seemed surprised by Robert's eloquence and passion. "I understand your point of view, Mr. Miller, but there are still practical issues to consider." Just then, a young nurse approached the group, holding a tablet. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I thought you might like to see this. We've just compiled the data for the last month." She showed the tablet, revealing graphs and statistics. Recovery rates have increased by 15% since the start of the program. Patient satisfaction is at a record high, and, surprisingly, our costs for pain and anxiety medications have decreased significantly. Mr. Hawkins studied the figures, his expression gradually changing. "That's pretty impressive," he admitted. Lisa saw an opportunity. "Mr. Hawkins, why don't you spend the day with us, see the program in action, talk to the patients, observe the sessions. Then, if you still have questions, we can discuss them." After a moment's hesitation, Mr. Hawkins nodded. Very well, Ms. Carter. I'll accept your invitation. As the group dispersed, Lisa exchanged glances with Robert and Dr. Rodriguez. They knew that the next few days would be crucial for the future of the show, but with Buddy by her side, and the support of the entire hospital community, Lisa was determined to prove the priceless value of animal-assisted therapy. The challenge was on, and Buddy's heart would be put to the test once again. The sun had barely risen when Lisa arrived at Oakville General Hospital that Thursday morning. The air was full of anticipation. Today would be the day that Mr. Hawkins, the member of the board of directors, would monitor the animal-assisted therapy program. Lisa met Robert and Buddy at the entrance to the hospital. Robert looked nervous, constantly adjusting the collar of his shirt. Ready for the big day? Lisa asked, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Robert nodded, absent-mindedly stroking Buddy's ears. As ready as I can be. Buddy here is the one who's going to do the heavy lifting, isn't he, Buddy? The golden retriever wagged his tail in response, as if he understood the importance of the moment. Mr. Hawkins arrived punctually at 9 a.m., wearing an impeccable suit and carrying a leather briefcase. His face was a mask of professional neutrality. Good morning, everyone, he greeted. I'm looking forward to seeing this program in action. The first stop was the pediatric ward. As they entered the colorful, cheerful room, they were greeted by the beaming smile of Lily, the little girl with cancer whom Lisa had met weeks before. Buddy! Lily exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. The dog immediately approached the bed, placing his head gently on the girl's lap. Lisa watched Mr. Hawkins' reaction carefully. For a brief moment, she saw his expression soften, a glimmer of emotion in his eyes. Lily's mother approached the group. Mr. Hawkins, she said, her voice heavy with emotion. I don't know if you understand how much this show means to us. Since Buddy started visiting Lily, she has faced her treatments with much more courage. It's like he's brought a piece of home to this hospital room. Mr. Hawkins sniffled, visibly touched. I see, he murmured. Quite impressive. The morning continued with visits to various hospital wards. At each stop, Mr. Hawkins witnessed the profound impact Buddy and the program had on the patients. Elderly people with Alzheimer's who suddenly remembered stories from their youth, war veterans finding comfort in the calm presence of their dog, children laughing for the first time in weeks. At the end of the morning, the group stopped at the cafeteria for a short break. Mr. Hawkins was silent, absorbing everything he had seen. Mr. Hawkins, Robert said, breaking the silence. I know you came here with legitimate concerns, but I hope you've seen that this program is about more than numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about hope, healing, and humanity. The administrator looked at Robert, then at Buddy, who was resting peacefully at his feet. Mr. Miller, Ms. Carter, he began, his voice softer than before. I must admit that I am deeply impressed. What I saw today goes far beyond the statistics I was presented with. Lisa felt a wave of relief run through her body. So, the program? Mr. Hawkins smiled, for the first time since he had arrived. Not only will I support the continuation of the program, but I will recommend its expansion. Oakville General Hospital could become a model for other hospitals across the country. The joy that followed was palpable. Lisa hugged Robert, tears of happiness in her eyes. Buddy, sensing the excitement in the air, barked happily, wagging his tail. As the group left the cafeteria, ready to continue the day with renewed enthusiasm, Lisa couldn't help thinking how a simple act of kindness, bringing a dog to visit its owner in hospital, had turned into something so great and transformative. Buddy's heart, full of unconditional love, had touched countless lives and was now about to impact many more. Spring arrived in Oakville, bringing with it a renewed sense of hope and possibility. At General Hospital, the animal-assisted therapy program, now officially approved and expanded, was blooming like flowers in the hospital gardens. Lisa was in her new office, a small room overlooking the hospital's inner courtyard. The walls were decorated with photos of Buddy and the other animal therapists who were now part of the program. She looked out of the window, watching Robert and Buddy conducting a group therapy session in the garden. A soft knock on the door brought her out of her thoughts. It was Dr. Rodriguez, smiling broadly. Lisa, I have great news, she said, entering the room. I just got a call from Boston Children's Hospital. They heard about our program and want you to come there for a presentation. They're considering implementing something similar. Lisa felt a wave of emotion run through her. That's incredible. I can hardly believe that our little program is gaining national recognition. Dr. Rodriguez nodded, her face beaming with pride. You deserve all the credit, Lisa. Robert looked up, a faint smile on his face. Yeah, just thinking. Dr. Rodriguez told me I've been discharged. I can go home next week. Lisa smiled, but noticed the hesitation in his voice. That's wonderful, Robert. But you don't seem very excited. He sighed deeply. It's just, this place has become my home, you know? Here, with the show, with Buddy, I have a purpose. Outside, I don't know what's waiting for me. Lisa reached out, gently touching Robert's arm. Robert, you've created something incredible here, and it doesn't have to end just because you're being discharged. In fact, she paused, an idea forming in her mind. What if you became our full-time volunteer coordinator? We could expand the program, reach more people in the community. Robert's eyes lit up with a mixture of surprise and hope. Do you think that would be possible? I'm sure it is, Lisa replied with conviction. I'll talk to Dr. Rodriguez right away. With her experience and passion, we could do amazing things. At that moment, Buddy appeared, laying his head on Robert's lap. The veteran smiled, stroking the dog's soft ears. What do you think, Buddy? Robert asked Buddy. Ready for some more adventures? Buddy barked happily, as if he understood every word. As Lisa watched the scene, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The program she had started wasn't just about bringing animals into a hospital. It was about creating connections, giving purpose, and, above all, healing hearts, both of the patients and those who cared for them. With Robert and Buddy by her side and new opportunities on the horizon, Lisa knew that this was just the beginning of an even greater journey. Buddy's heart had touched countless lives in Oakville, and now it was about to expand its reach far beyond the walls of the hospital. Autumn had returned to Oakville, marking 1 year since Buddy had made his first unauthorized visit to General Hospital. The trees on the hospital campus displayed a dazzling palette of reds, oranges, and golds, reflecting the transformation that had taken place within its walls. Lisa was standing at the podium of the packed auditorium, looking out at a diverse audience of healthcare professionals, volunteers, and patients. The banner behind her announced, National Animal Assisted Therapy Conference, Oakville, Pioneer in Compassionate Healing. 1 year ago, she began, her voice firm and full of emotion, a stubborn golden retriever decided he couldn't stay away from his hospitalized owner. Today, we're here to celebrate how that act of love has transformed not only our hospital, but is changing the way we see care and healing across the country. His eyes found Robert in the front row, Buddy faithfully by his side. The veteran, now the program's full-time coordinator, smiled encouragingly. Lisa continued, sharing stories of patients whose lives had been touched by the program. She talked about children with cancer who found the courage to face difficult treatments, seniors with Alzheimer's who regained precious memories, and veterans who rediscovered a sense of purpose. But the real hero of this story, she said, her voice tinged with emotion, is Buddy, a dog who taught us that sometimes the most powerful medicine is a heart full of unconditional love. As the audience applauded, Buddy, as if he understood that he was being honored, stood up and barked happily, provoking laughter and more applause. After the performance, Lisa joined Robert and Buddy in the hospital garden. The place, once an underused space, was now a vibrant center for therapeutic activities, with flower beds, comfortable benches, and even a small meditation labyrinth. You looked amazing in there, Robert said, his face beaming with pride. Lisa smiled, cuddling Buddy. We did it together, Robert. You, me, and this wonderful boy here. They watched a group of patients walking their canine companions, their laughter echoing through the garden. You know, Robert reflected, when I came to this hospital, I thought my life was over. I never imagined that I would find a new purpose, a new family. Lisa nodded, understanding the feeling deeply. It's amazing how life can surprise us, isn't it? A small act of kindness can trigger a wave of change. At that moment, Dr. Rodriguez approached, accompanied by a man Lisa recognized as the director of a renowned research hospital in New York. "Lisa, Robert," Dr. Rodriguez said, her eyes shining with excitement. "Dr. Anderson here was very impressed with our program. He wants to discuss the possibility of implementing something similar at his hospital and using Oakville as a training center." As they talked about the exciting possibilities that were opening up, Lisa couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought them there. From a simple pilot program to a national model of compassionate care, Buddy's impact had expanded far beyond what any of them could have imagined. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the garden. Lisa looked at Buddy, who was watching the scene with that serene, loving expression that had become so familiar. "Well, Buddy," she said softly, "it looks like your mission is just beginning. Ready to touch a few more hearts?" In response, Buddy wagged his tail and barked happily, as if to say, "Always ready to spread love." And so, as the day drew to a close in Oakville, Lisa knew it was only the beginning of a new chapter. Buddy's heart would continue to inspire, heal, and unite people, proving that sometimes the purest and most transformative love comes on 4 paws and with a heart of gold.